The mistress poisoned pregnant wife's tea. The millionaire's reaction in court shocked everyone. They say that nothing cuts deeper than betrayal, especially when it's hidden behind a smile and served in a cup of tea. In the quiet, upscale neighborhood of Fairview Heights, the Harrington Mansion was the envy of onlookers, a symbol of success, wealth, and timeless love. Yet behind its ornate gates and pristine marble floors, secrets brewed more potent than the strongest poison. When Lily Harrington, the beloved pregnant wife of millionaire Marcus Harrington, fell gravely ill after her afternoon tea, suspicion slithered through every whisper. And at the center of it all was Cassandra Morgan, the radiant mistress whose jealousy knew no bounds. From the outside, the Harrington Mansion in Fairview Heights looked like a dream. Towering columns, manicured gardens, and a sweeping driveway all spoke of wealth, class, and a picture-perfect family. Marcus Harrington, a handsome 37-year-old millionaire businessman, lived here with his beautiful, kind-hearted wife, Lily. To the world, they were the golden couple, successful, glamorous, and expecting their first child. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. Lily, a former school teacher from a modest background, had fallen in love with Marcus's charm and ambition. Their whirlwind romance led to a lavish wedding, and now, a highly anticipated pregnancy. But as Lily's belly grew, Marcus's attention seemed to fade. He worked late, traveled often, and kept secrets tucked behind curt replies and missed dinners. The reason? Cassandra Morgan. Cassandra was everything Lily wasn't: bold, seductive, and calculating. Marcus met her at a charity event, and their flirtation quickly turned into a dangerous affair. While Lily planned the nursery and read baby books, Marcus was sneaking off to hidden hotel suites and late-night rendezvous. To Cassandra, Lily was nothing more than an obstacle. The baby, even worse. With every update on Lily's pregnancy, Cassandra's jealousy deepened. She believed Marcus belonged to her, and she wasn't about to lose to a simple school teacher who got lucky. But Marcus, despite his affair, couldn't bring himself to leave Lily. Guilt gnawed at him, but not enough to stop. He told himself he could balance it all: the wife, the mistress, the image. Meanwhile, Lily sensed the change. His coldness, his distance, it all chipped away at her trust. Still, she stayed hopeful, convinced it was just stress or nerves about becoming a father. And so the facade remained. To outsiders, they were still the perfect couple in the perfect house. But inside the mansion, betrayal brewed like a storm waiting to strike. And Cassandra, she wasn't going to wait much longer. Lily's pregnancy was no walk in the park. Morning sickness plagued her, and her Dr. Fiona Caldwell advised her to keep calm, hydrated, and well-rested. Yet Lily was determined to be an active partner in Marcus's life, attending various charity galas in public events to uphold the Harrington family's image. With a child on the way, Lily believed it was crucial to present a united front to the world. Among those events was a lavish brunch fundraiser for the Fairview Children's Hospital, hosted at the Harrington Mansion. The estate was bustling with caterers, florists, photographers, and guests arriving in sleek cars. Marcus glided through the crowd, shaking hands and flashing smiles. Lily, feeling self-conscious about her growing belly, stood near the rose garden, welcoming guests with genuine warmth. That was when Cassandra made her first official appearance as an unassuming friend of David Maxwell. She wore a form-fitting ivory dress that seemed designed to catch Marcus's eye, and it worked. As soon as Cassandra arrived, Marcus felt his heart skip. He prayed Lily wouldn't notice how his gaze lingered a moment too long. "Marcus," David called out, approaching him with Cassandra in tow. "I believe you've met Cassandra Morgan?" Marcus forced a polite smile. "Yes, of course. So lovely to see you again." Cassandra responded with a perfectly calibrated laugh. "Thank you for having me here. I've heard so much about your philanthropic work." Lily noticed Marcus stiffen, but dismissed it as just business nerves. She greeted Cassandra with the same kindness she extended to all guests. But when Cassandra shook Lily's hand, something in the mistress's eyes flickered, an inexplicable mix of envy and malice. Lily felt a shiver course through her, but brushed it off. As the brunch progressed, Cassandra kept to David's side, politely chatting with other guests. But every so often, her eyes would wander across the courtyard to rest on Marcus. The tension between them was palpable to anyone who cared to look closely. Lily, oblivious, remained the epitome of a gracious hostess. Cassandra managed a moment alone with Marcus near the mansion's grand staircase. She leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is quite the event, Marcus. The house, the garden, your lovely wife, all so perfect." The edge in her tone suggested anything but admiration. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Don't do this here." "Relax," Cassandra said, her lips curving into a sly smile. "I'm just enjoying the scenery." He forced a tight smile at a passing guest, then whispered, "Cassandra, please." She laughed softly, the sound empty of humor. "You're worried about what people might think. I'm just your partner's date, right? No need to fret." The moment was fraught with danger. Marcus felt trapped between his need to maintain appearances and the desire that still simmered between them. Later that evening, after the fundraiser had concluded, Lily's feet were aching and her back was sore. She curled up on a sofa in the living room, reflecting on the day. Marcus approached, tie loosened, tension visibly etched on his face. "You okay?" he asked, taking a seat beside her. "I'm fine, just tired." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Who was that woman David brought?" "She seemed intriguing." Marcus's breath caught. I believe she's a friend from the city, Cassandra Morgan. She's into charity work, or so David says." Lily nodded slowly, yawning. "She's beautiful. Charismatic, too." Marcus hesitated. "I guess so, but I barely know her." Lily smiled, unaware of the betrayal hidden in his words. She closed her eyes, letting her exhaustion take over. Marcus felt a pang of remorse, an emotion that was becoming more frequent but did little to stem his dangerous entanglement. Meanwhile, Cassandra's mind churned with cunning after the event. She had seen Lily's sweet demeanor, the unborn child that was about to solidify Marcus's devotion. If Cassandra wanted to secure her place, she needed to act, and soon. She began to research everything about Lily's routines. It wasn't hard to glean information when one knew how to charm the right people. The house staff, unsuspecting acquaintances, even local gossip columns provided Cassandra with enough details. Lily's preference for afternoon tea, her fondness for herbal blends, her daily schedule of doctor appointments, and the special vitamins she took. Cassandra's plan took shape in the shadows of her mind. A subtle poison, introduced gradually into Lily's tea, might cause complications. Nothing too dramatic at first, just enough to make Lily ill, stress her pregnancy, and create tension in the marriage. If done correctly, suspicion would remain minimal. Marcus, feeling guilty about Lily's ill health, might blame himself for not providing enough support. Perhaps he would even turn to Cassandra for comfort, inadvertently driving him deeper into her web. Such twisted logic consumed Cassandra's days and nights. She contacted a shadowy acquaintance from her past, someone who dabbled in unregulated herbal compounds. She asked for something that would induce slow harm, claiming she needed it for a personal matter. The man gave her a small vial filled with a colorless, odorless substance that he claimed could weaken a person over time, especially someone in a delicate condition. Cassandra stared at the vial, heart pounding. She felt a twinge of conscience, but it evaporated under the scorching heat of envy and ambition. Love was never truly what drove Cassandra. It was hunger for power, status, and the life that Lily owned so effortlessly. She rationalized that if Lily were out of the picture, or at least rendered vulnerable, Marcus would turn to her more intensely. She believed that he would finally realize who truly belonged at his side. That was the first glimpse of the poison that would soon turn the Harrington mansion into a place of harrowing secrets and devastating betrayals. Weeks passed, and as Lily's pregnancy advanced, Marcus seemed more distant than ever. Lily tried to remain patient, telling herself that he was under tremendous stress. On a few occasions, she attempted to discuss marriage counseling, hoping a third party could help them reconnect before the baby arrived. Marcus, however, dismissed her suggestions, citing lack of time. Yet something else was happening behind the scenes. Cassandra had found an unexpected ally within the Harrington household, Harriet Willis, Lily's personal assistant. Harriet wasn't malicious, She was simply lonely, underpaid, and fascinated by the glamorous lifestyle unfolding around her. Cassandra, sensing Harriet's longing for a more exciting life, befriended her under the guise of being an admirer of Harriet's artistic sketches. It was disturbingly easy for Cassandra to manipulate Harriet into divulging small bits of household information. Lily's favorite brand of tea, the schedule for her prenatal checkups, and even the times when Lily would be alone at home, typically around mid-afternoon. Cassandra became adept at learning when Lily was in the garden or the library, so she could plan her clandestine visits without risk of detection. During one such visit, Cassandra slipped through the kitchen entrance with Harriet's tacit approval. Disguised in a simple coat and a scarf covering her face, she made her way to the butler's pantry, where the household's tea and supplies were stored. There she pulled out the vial and carefully measured a small amount of the colorless substance onto a tiny spoon. She laced the tea leaves with it, mixing gently to avoid detection. She knew that Lily would probably brew tea the following afternoon. The idea thrilled and repulsed her in equal measure. Her heart pounded as if it might burst. She was crossing a moral line from which there would be no return. Yet she pressed on, fueled by jealousy and desperation. The next day, Lily, feeling unusually fatigued, asked Harriet to prepare her usual chamomile blend. With a polite smile, Harriet obliged, entirely unaware of the poison that now tainted the tea canister. Moments later, Lily took her first sip, finding the flavor slightly off but attributing it to a new brand or a minor oversight. She drank it anyway, eager to soothe her nerves. Cassandra waited anxiously in her penthouse apartment, anticipating a call or some report. But nothing dramatic happened that day. Lily experienced a mild headache and went to bed early, attributing it to the general fatigue of pregnancy. Unbeknownst to Lily and Marcus, a slow poison was taking root. Over the following weeks, Lily's morning sickness intensified. She began to experience dizzy spells. Dr. Caldwell ran additional tests but found nothing conclusively wrong. She advised bed rest and a vigilant watch on Lily's vitals. Marcus's concern for Lily finally took precedence over his passion for Cassandra, at least temporarily. He canceled a series of business trips to stay closer to home. This was not the outcome Cassandra had hoped for. She watched from the sidelines, frustrated that her plan had backfired. Instead of pushing Marcus away from Lily, her meddling had brought him closer to his wife. Lily's deteriorating health had awakened Marcus's protective instincts. Cassandra realized she needed to accelerate her plan if she hoped to see her desired result: Lily's permanent departure from Marcus's life. However, fate threw Cassandra a curveball. Lily's father, Richard Arlington, arrived in town. Concerned by Lily's condition, he decided to stay for a while in the mansion's guest suite. Richard was a perceptive man who never much cared for the Harringtons' showy lifestyle, but for the sake of his daughter, he had softened his opinions toward Marcus, until he noticed the cracks forming in their marriage. Richard spent time with Lily, talking about her health and her feelings. She expressed worry that Marcus might be drifting away emotionally, but she did not suspect an affair. Instead, she blamed the demands of wealth and social obligations. Privately, Richard questioned Marcus's loyalty. He saw subtle signs, a missed dinner here, a wandering glance there, that hinted at deeper issues. The presence of Richard Arlington made it far more difficult for Cassandra to sneak into the house or rely on Harriet. The older man had a knack for noticing minor changes in the staff's demeanor. Harriet, aware of Richard's scrutiny, became more cautious in her interactions with Cassandra. This forced Cassandra to refine her strategy, making each move more calculated and discreet. And in the midst of all this turmoil, Lily's birthday approached. Marcus planned a grand celebration to lift her spirits. The mansion would again be filled with flowers, music, and influential guests. Lily, though still weak, looked forward to it as a chance to reconnect with her husband. She clung to the hope that a shared joyful moment could bring them closer again, especially with the baby due in just a few months. Cassandra, upon learning of the party from Harriet, saw it as both a threat and an opportunity. If Lily appeared radiant and happy at her party, the media would spin it as a triumph for the couple's love, further binding Marcus to his wife. Cassandra couldn't allow that. She decided that Lily's birthday was the perfect time to unleash a stronger dose of poison, ensuring Lily's collapse would overshadow any celebratory mood. perhaps even endanger the pregnancy enough to create lasting complications. The stage was set for a birthday celebration that would go down in infamy, a turning point where loyalty, jealousy, and greed collided under the sparkling chandeliers of the Harrington mansion. The day of Lily's birthday arrived, and the Harrington mansion gleamed like a polished jewel. Enormous floral arrangements lined the foyer. A string quartet rehearsed in the formal living room, and the air crackled with anticipation. Lily, determined to enjoy her special day, despite the fatigue and intermittent nausea, wore a flowing emerald green dress that showcased her baby bump. She looked ethereal, though a hint of pallor clung to her cheeks. Marcus, guilt simmering under his polished exterior, made every effort to be the adoring husband. He personally oversaw the menu, hired Lily's favorite string ensemble, and arranged for fireworks to cap off the evening. He hoped that, through this grand gesture, he could alleviate some of the guilt haunting him over his affair with Cassandra. Today, he told himself, was all about Lily. But unknown to either of them, Cassandra had laid her trap with meticulous care. She arrived early under the pretense of assisting with last-minute details, once again as David Maxwell's companion. This time, Harriet was too busy to keep track of Cassandra's movements. Cassandra found a brief window while the staff bustled about the kitchen preparing hors d'oeuvres. Seizing the moment, she slipped into the butler's pantry and located Lily's special birthday tea blend, a fragrant mixture of jasmine and lavender that Lily adored. Her heart pounded as she emptied a significant portion of the vial into the tea leaves. The instructions she'd received for this poison were clear. A large dose could cause severe illness, potentially a miscarriage, or worse. Cassandra's mind churned with conflicting emotions, fear, resentment, and an odd exhilaration. She sealed the tin, placed it back on the shelf, and made a discreet exit. The festivities began with lively chatter as guests mingled over champagne and canapes. Richard Arlington kept a watchful eye on Lily, who was valiantly trying to enjoy herself. At one point, Lily felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. Worried about her daughter, Richard suggested she rest for a while in one of the upstairs suites. Lily reluctantly agreed, not wanting to cause a scene on her birthday. Marcus, unaware of the severity of Lily's discomfort, was in the midst of greeting Senator Veronica Carlson, an influential figure who could benefit Harrington Industries. He excused himself as soon as he heard Lily had gone upstairs. Racing to her side, he found her resting on a chaise lounge, a glass of water in hand. Lily assured him it was just a temporary spell of weakness. Marcus, half panicked, insisted that Dr. Caldwell, who was also a guest, take a look at her. Dr. Caldwell examined Lily briefly and concluded that Lily's vitals were stable, advising her to stay hydrated and avoid overstimulation. Feeling somewhat reassured, Lily agreed to come downstairs to cut her birthday cake. She longed to cling to the evening's joy, fleeting though it might be. As Lily descended the grand staircase, the assembled guests burst into applause. The birthday cake, 3 tiers of decadent chocolate, sat on a table draped in golden cloth. Lily smiled warmly, touched by the outpouring of love from friends and family. Marcus joined her at the table, placing a gentle hand on her back to guide her. Cassandra, lurking at the fringes of the crowd, observed every detail. She noted the moment when one of the house staff whispered in Lily's ear about preparing her special birthday tea to accompany the cake. The staff member disappeared into the kitchen to brew a pot of Lily's favorite jasmine lavender blend. After the candles were extinguished and Lily had taken the first slice, a maid brought out the tea tray. The pale liquid in the teacup gave off a subtle floral aroma. Lily took it gratefully, trusting it to soothe her uneasy stomach. She raised the cup to her lips, unaware that it carried a lethal dose of Cassandra's poison. It didn't take long. Within minutes, Lily's face lost what little color it had. She felt a wrenching pain seize her abdomen. A cold sweat beaded across her forehead. Alarmed, Marcus noticed her trembling. He caught her just as she collapsed, the teacup shattering on the marble floor. Gasps and shrieks erupted among the guests, who rushed to Lily's side. Dr. Caldwell elbowed her way through the gathering crowd, calling for space and silence. She checked Lily's pulse and breathing. The situation was critical. Lily's heart rate was erratic, and she was struggling to breathe. An ambulance was summoned at once. Richard Arlington stood near, his expression grim, doing his best to comfort his daughter. Panic spread like wildfire through the mansion. In the chaos, Cassandra managed to feign shock and concern. She wiped imaginary tears, comforting a frantic David Maxwell as they awaited the paramedics. Inwardly, however, she was both terrified and strangely satisfied. She had set out to sabotage Lily's health, but the swiftness with which Lily collapsed exceeded her expectations. For a moment, she wondered if she had gone too far. Marcus, on his knees, cradled Lily's head, tears streaming down his face. Regret consumed him. He realized only now how deeply he loved his wife, how he had taken her presence for granted. As the paramedics arrived and lifted Lily onto a stretcher, Marcus felt utterly helpless. Could it be something as simple as pregnancy complications, or was it more sinister? Over and over, Marcus whispered, "Hold on, Lily. Please, God, hold on." The guests parted like the Red Sea to allow the paramedics through. No one could fully grasp what had just transpired, but the look on Marcus's face said everything. He feared he was on the brink of losing both his wife and their unborn child. And so, on the night Lily was supposed to celebrate another year of life, she lay unconscious in an ambulance, her fate uncertain. The Harrington mansion, once aglow with laughter and music, was left in hushed darkness, overshadowed by a tragedy that was no accident. Tension filled the waiting area at Fairview Heights Medical Center. Marcus and Richard paced back and forth, their eyes darting anxiously toward the doors leading to the emergency ward. The rest of the party guests had dispersed, some out of genuine concern, others out of discomfort with the scandal that might arise. Dr. Caldwell was inside with Lily, overseeing a barrage of tests to determine the cause of her sudden collapse. Cassandra lingered in the waiting room, feigning concern. David Maxwell tried to calm her, his arm around her shoulders. She occasionally dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, as though she were truly devastated. Onlookers who recognized her only saw a distraught friend. Marcus, however, barely acknowledged her presence. The tension spiked when a team of obstetric specialists rushed in, heads bowed in whispered consultation. They disappeared into Lily's room. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Dr. Caldwell emerged, her face etched with exhaustion. "She's stable for now," Dr. Caldwell announced, "but it's critical we figure out what caused this. Her symptoms suggest some sort of toxic exposure. We're running toxicology tests, and we need to watch the baby carefully." Marcus felt as though the floor had crumbled beneath him. Toxic exposure? Could Lily have accidentally ingested something poisonous? His mind raced. In the swirl of confusion, a harsh truth loomed. Lily's tea had tasted odd to her earlier, or so she'd mentioned in passing once. His heart hammered. Could someone have tampered with her tea? Richard, face pale, gripped Marcus's shoulder. "How could this happen? She's so careful. She barely drinks or eats outside of home." Marcus could only shake his head, words failing him. He had no answers, only suspicion. In a moment of gut-wrenching realization, his thoughts flickered to Cassandra. Yet he dismissed the idea as quickly as it came. It was too horrifying to imagine that she would go this far. The night passed in a haze. Lily remained unconscious. Dr. Caldwell administered intravenous fluids and monitored her vitals. The baby's heartbeat was faint but present, a fragile hope amidst the crisis. By morning, Lily stirred briefly, her eyes fluttering open. She murmured Marcus's name before slipping back into a semi-conscious state. Dr. Caldwell explained that Lily's body was fighting the toxins, but the outcome remained uncertain. Back at the mansion, authorities began to investigate. Samples of Lily's tea, along with any medications she had been taking, were collected for analysis. Marcus complied fully, though he felt like he was moving through a nightmare. The staff were questioned about where they sourced the tea and who had access to it. Harriet, trembling with guilt she couldn't fully place, admitted that Lily's tea was stored in the butler's pantry, accessible to anyone with a reason to be in the kitchen. None of them mentioned Cassandra. She was just a guest at the party after all, with no apparent reason to wander into the pantry. The media caught wind of the story soon after. Morning talk shows speculated about the Harrington family tragedy. Paparazzi staked out the hospital and the mansion gates, hungry for any scrap of information. Inside the hospital, Marcus and Richard kept a vigil at Lily's bedside. Cassandra, worried about drawing too much attention, stayed away, though her phone buzzed incessantly with calls from reporters seeking comment. She ignored them all, partially out of fear that her involvement might be exposed. Days turned into a week, and Lily's condition slowly improved. The toxicology report confirmed the presence of a rare compound not commonly found in household products. Investigators labeled it a case of suspected poisoning. The Harrington estate was now a potential crime scene, and the staff, including Harriet, were under close scrutiny. Harriet, terrified, tried to recall any suspicious event, but couldn't bear to mention Cassandra's name. After all, Harriet had unknowingly assisted her in small ways, and she herself didn't know the extent of Cassandra's plan. Marcus was beside himself. Torn between heartbreak for Lily and mounting suspicion, he confronted Harriet. "Who else could have tampered with Lily's tea?" he demanded. Harriet stammered, offering that the tea brand had changed recently, or that a supplier might be at fault. Marcus could see the fear in her eyes, but he couldn't decide if she was hiding something or simply overwhelmed. Late one evening, exhausted from the hospital's unrelenting fluorescent lights, Marcus collapsed into a chair in Lily's room. He clasped her hand, feeling the band of her wedding ring press into his palm. Memories of their wedding day flooded back. How she had laughed when he tripped over the hem of her dress. How she had kissed him under a canopy of flowers. Guilt tore at him like a vulture. He recalled each time he had slipped away to spend time with Cassandra. Each moment he had lied to Lily's face. If Lily never fully recovered, if the baby was lost, how could he live with himself? In a brief moment of lucidity, Lily woke up and whispered to Marcus, "Promise me. Promise you won't leave me alone." Her voice cracked. She seemed to sense his torment even through her dazed state. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Tears slipped down his cheeks. He realized how much he adored her, how he would do anything to keep her and their child safe. But that realization made him think more seriously about Cassandra. He remembered her sly, knowing looks, the way she had been around a bit too often at gatherings. He recalled his own moral lapses, how he had started this affair and never truly tried to end it. Could Cassandra truly be capable of this? The possibility gnawed at him, refusing to let go. Before long, Lily's mother, who had been traveling abroad, arrived. She was devastated to see her daughter in such a fragile state. Tension soared in the hospital room. Marcus felt the weight of disapproval from Lily's parents, and he couldn't blame them. Though no one openly accused him, the undercurrent was clear. As Lily's husband, he should have protected her. Eventually, Lily was stable enough to give a statement to the investigators. In a trembling voice, she recounted her routine, the brand of tea she preferred, and how she felt faint even before the party. She remembered seeing a woman, a friend of David's, roaming near the pantry days before the event. That was all she recalled, and Lily was unsure if it was relevant or just a random guest exploring. That single detail lit a fire in the investigators' eyes. They requested the guest list from the party. One name jumped out, Cassandra Morgan. She was known to them from a prior incident where her involvement with wealthy men had led to a fraud investigation, though charges were never proven. The investigators requested an interview. Little did they know that their questioning would unveil a tapestry of deceit, blackmail, and manipulation, culminating in an explosive confrontation that would shake the foundations of the Harrington family and lead to a courtroom drama no one could have foreseen. The police detective in charge of the case, Detective Maurice Kendall, arrived at Cassandra Morgan's penthouse unannounced, accompanied by a junior officer. Cassandra, who prided herself on her poise, answered the door wearing a silk robe, her hair immaculately styled. A flicker of surprise crossed her face when she saw Kendall flash his badge. "Ms. Morgan?" he asked, stepping forward. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about an incident at the Harrington estate." Feigning calm, Cassandra waved them in, offering a polite smile. "I've heard about Mrs. Harrington's sudden illness. Terrible thing. How can I help?" Kendall studied her for a moment before speaking. "We have reason to believe that Mrs. Harrington's tea was poison. We're questioning all guests who attended her birthday party. Since you were there, we'd appreciate any information you might have." Cassandra led them into her living room. Plush carpets and an ornate chandelier gave the space a refined elegance. She sat gracefully on a velvet sofa, crossing her legs. "I'm afraid I don't know much. I arrived with David Maxwell. It was a lovely party until Lily collapsed. I was shocked, like everyone else. Kendall took out a notepad. Were you ever alone near the kitchen or the butler's pantry that evening? Her eyes narrowed slightly. No, I don't think so. There were staff everywhere. I mostly stayed with David or mingled with other guests. As the questioning continued, Cassandra's polished answers gave little away. Detective Kendall left with no tangible evidence, but an unsettled feeling persisted. Cassandra Morgan was too composed, too practiced in her responses. He suspected there was more beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Harriet Willis, overwhelmed by guilt, decided to confide in Lily's father, Richard Arlington. She asked for a private conversation. In tears, she admitted how Cassandra had befriended her, extracted information about Lily, and even arranged to come to the house when Lily was out. She revealed everything except the actual poisoning plan because Harriet did not know the extent of Cassandra's intentions. She had merely facilitated access to the estate, believing Cassandra to be an acquaintance with harmless intentions. Richard's face darkened as Harriet spoke. "Why didn't you tell us earlier?" he demanded, though he kept his voice steady. I was scared," Harriet stammered. "Ms. Morgan was so charming. I didn't think it would go this far. Please, Mr. Arlington, I never meant any harm." Richard realized Harriet was more naive than malicious. He consoled her as best he could, then told her to recount everything to Detective Kendall. Her testimony would be key in establishing a motive and opportunity for Cassandra Morgan. Days later, Harriet gave a full statement at the police station. She described Cassandra's discreet visits, her interest in Lily's routine, and how she once saw Cassandra fiddling with a small vial in the butler's pantry, though she didn't think much of it at the time. Detective Kendall finally had something concrete. He immediately arranged for a search warrant of Cassandra's penthouse. When the police arrived, Cassandra put up a confident front, but panic churned inside her. She watched as they methodically searched every corner, confiscating her laptop, phone, and even rummaging through her personal vanity. The living room, the bedroom, the kitchen, nothing was off limits. Then in a small locked drawer in her study, they found a half-used vial containing a strange substance. A forensic team tested it, confirming it contained the same compound that had been found in Lily's bloodstream and in the leftover tea samples. Cassandra Morgan was arrested on a suspicion of attempted murder. The news broke in a media firestorm, with reporters bombarding Marcus Harrington for comments. He refused to speak publicly, focusing on Lily and the baby. The Harrington name, previously untouchable, now faced a scandal of epic proportions. Cassandra, incensed, claimed she was being framed. She used her one phone call to contact a high-powered attorney. Her defense: the poison had been planted by someone wishing to incriminate her. She even hinted at David Maxwell, suggesting that he was jealous of her connections to Marcus or that Harriet herself was to blame, spinning an elaborate story of blackmail. But the avalanche of evidence was strong. Harriet's statement, the poison found in Cassandra's possession, and security footage from the Harrington estate showing Cassandra sneaking into restricted areas. The case headed to trial swiftly, capturing the public's imagination. How had a dazzling socialite come so close to killing a pregnant billionaire's wife? Marcus felt sick whenever he thought of Cassandra. He admitted his affair to Lily's parents, who were furious but chose to focus on Lily's recovery instead of confronting him. In a quiet moment at Lily's hospital bedside, Marcus confessed everything to her. Lily's eyes filled with tears, not just from the pain of betrayal, but from the realization that someone he had once been intimate with had tried to kill her and their unborn child. Despite her emotional wounds, Lily clung to life, determined to protect her baby. A glimmer of resilience shone in her eyes. Dr. Caldwell said that both mother and child were miraculously holding on, though Lily would need extensive follow-up care in a calm environment to ensure a safe delivery. "I'm so sorry," Marcus whispered one night, his head bowed, tears dampening the crisp white sheets of her hospital bed. "I never meant for any of this." Lily nodded weakly, choosing to preserve her energy rather than lash out. Betrayal was a canyon that stretched between them, but for the sake of their child, she couldn't let anger consume her. Not entirely. As the trial date loomed, public opinion vacillated between condemnation of Cassandra and pity for Lily. Some sensational tabloids even suggested Lily had somehow invited trouble by being a trophy wife, fueling the public's morbid fascination. Meanwhile, wealthy friends of the Harringtons either distanced themselves out of fear of being embroiled in scandal or rallied around them in solidarity. Cassandra's legal team prepared an aggressive defense strategy. They wanted to cast doubt on the chain of custody of the poison, question Harriet's credibility, and insinuate that Marcus himself might have used Cassandra as a scapegoat. Rumors circulated that Cassandra had once confided to a friend about her suspicion of Lily's doping or self-harm attempts. The defense team was prepared to hurl every possible narrative into the courtroom. Marcus steeled himself for the trial. He was ready to face his own disgrace if it meant seeing justice served. The real question burning in everyone's mind was, how would the millionaire husband of a nearly murdered pregnant wife react when forced to confront the mistress who had attempted the unthinkable? The courthouse was swarming with reporters and curious onlookers on the day the trial commenced. Lily, still frail, arrived in a wheelchair supported by Marcus and Dr. Caldwell, who had insisted on accompanying her for medical reasons. The spectacle was overwhelming. Camera flashes, shouted questions, and a tidal wave of attention. Lily tried to keep her gaze steady, focusing on the promise of justice rather than the humiliation of public scrutiny. Inside the courtroom, Judge Gregory Patterson presided over the case. A stern man known for his no-nonsense approach, he wasted no time in calling for order. Cassandra sat at the defense table, flanked by her legal counsel. She wore a modest black dress, her hair pulled back tightly. Gone was the glamour and poise she had once flaunted. The charges against her were severe: attempted murder of an unborn child, and reckless endangerment. The prosecution opened with a compelling narrative of Cassandra's jealousy and sense of entitlement, painting her as a scheming mistress who saw Lily's pregnancy as a roadblock to her own ambitions. Harriet Willis took the stand first, tears streaming as she recounted her unwitting role in providing Cassandra with information about Lily's routine. She described the visits, the locked doors, and the times she had seen Cassandra lingering in restricted areas. Cassandra's defense tried to poke holes in Harriet's testimony, suggesting Harriet had a personal grudge or that she had been coerced into testifying. Harriet's voice trembled, but she remained resolute, emphasizing that she had no vendetta, only guilt for her unintentional involvement. Next came the forensic experts who detailed how the poison found in Cassandra's penthouse matched the compound in Lily's system. They walked the jury through chemical breakdowns and distribution timelines, establishing that the substance was not something typically used in household products. Finally, Marcus Harrington was called to testify. A tense hush fell over the courtroom. Here was the husband, the man who had engaged in an affair with the defendant and whose wife had nearly died. Marcus took his seat, cleared his throat, and began his testimony. His voice was heavy with remorse as he recounted how he had met Cassandra, how their relationship developed, and the guilt he felt for betraying Lily. When Cassandra's defense attorney cross-examined him, they tried to insinuate that Marcus had orchestrated a frame-up to rid himself of an inconvenient mistress. Marcus held firm, stating there was no logical reason for him to harm his own wife and unborn child. Then came the moment everyone had anticipated. Cassandra's attorney asked him point-blank if he still had feelings for her. Marcus glanced at Lily, who was watching from her wheelchair, pale yet determined. He inhaled sharply before responding, "I was infatuated, misguided. But that is over. My only concern now is my wife, my child, and ensuring justice is served." For the first time during the trial, Cassandra lost her composure. She stood up, trembling, tears pooling in her eyes. "You promised me everything," she screamed, voice echoing across the silent courtroom. "You said you loved me." Judge Patterson banged his gavel, demanding order. The bailiff stepped forward to restrain Cassandra, who collapsed into her seat, sobbing. The jury watched with wide eyes, seeing firsthand the depth of her emotional instability. Throughout the rest of the trial, the defense struggled to recast Cassandra as a victim of Marcus's manipulation. They presented a theory that Harriet and Marcus had conspired to poison Lily to gain public sympathy and secure business alliances. The prosecution quickly dismantled these claims, pointing to physical evidence, phone records, and Harriet's consistent testimony. It took the jury less than 2 days to reach a verdict. As the foreperson stood to read it, tension thickened the air. We, the jury, find the defendant, Cassandra Morgan, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted with chatter as the judge called for order once more. Cassandra's face went pale. She shook her head in disbelief, as though she couldn't fathom that her carefully woven illusions had unraveled so completely. Judge Patterson sentenced her to a lengthy prison term, citing the calculated nature of the crime and the vulnerability of a pregnant victim. In that moment, all eyes turned to Marcus Harrington. How would he react? Rumors had circulated that he might break down, or show fury, or even attempt to shield Cassandra despite everything. Instead, he exhibited a reaction that shocked the entire courtroom. He quietly walked over to Cassandra's seat, looked her in the eyes for a fleeting second, then turned away. Tears glistened on his cheeks as he joined Lily, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Reporters described the millionaire's reaction as one of silent devastation, an acknowledgement of the irreparable harm caused by his own lapses in moral judgment. The tabloids later dubbed it the look that shook the courtroom, capturing Marcus's final glance at the woman who had nearly destroyed his life. In that subtle moment, people saw regret, sorrow, and a solemn acceptance of responsibility. Cassandra was led away in handcuffs. Lily watched in silence, tears trickling down her cheeks. In that instant, she saw Marcus not as the arrogant playboy or the multi-millionaire businessman, but as a flawed man, deeply wounded by the consequences of his own failings. For better or worse, their lives had been inexorably changed by this chapter of madness. The legal battle ended, but the emotional journey for the Harringtons was far from over. In the months ahead, Lily would attempt to heal from both the physical trauma of poisoning and the emotional scars of betrayal. Marcus, facing mounting public scrutiny, would struggle to reconcile his remorse with the reality of nearly losing his family. And for Cassandra Morgan, the woman who once dreamed of wearing Lily's crown, only the cold confines of a prison cell awaited, a place where illusions faded and regret set in, day after relentless day. In the weeks following the trial, the Harrington mansion felt strangely hollow. Parties and galas had been canceled or postponed, and the house was quiet except for the occasional visit from close family and a few trusted friends. The staff, once bustling with daily tasks for lavish events, now moved about solemnly, focusing on Lily's comfort and health. Lily was discharged from the hospital under strict medical supervision. Dr. Caldwell set up a room on the first floor of the mansion, converting it into a home care suite. She visited twice a week to check Lily's vitals, administer injections, and ensure that the baby's heart rate remained steady. Thanks to immediate treatment and Lily's resilience, the unborn child had survived the ordeal, though the pregnancy remained high risk. Marcus spent hours each day by Lily's side, holding her hand, reading to her, or just sitting in silence. At first, Lily avoided discussing the betrayal that had nearly ended her life. She was too exhausted to confront the emotional toll it exacted. But one afternoon, as rain pattered against the French windows, she asked him calmly, "Why did you do it? Why Cassandra?" He sighed, looking down at his hands. The question had gnawed at him for months. "I was foolish, Lily. I got swept up in ego, in the thrill of something new. I let my ambition and vanity overshadow the fact that I had everything I ever wanted right in front of me." She studied him, her eyes a mixture of sadness and empathy. "I'm trying to forgive you, Marcus," she said quietly, "but it's not easy." "I understand," he replied, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust again." They spent long evenings in conversation, sometimes discussing the affair, other times reminiscing about happier days. Their emotional connection was fragile, like a shattered vase painstakingly glued back together, never entirely whole, but still holding shape. Lily made it clear that Marcus had to attend therapy to address his impulses and the root causes of his infidelity. Marcus agreed, enrolling in both couples and individual counseling sessions. Gradually, Lily saw glimpses of the man she had married, compassionate, dedicated, and remorseful. Marcus dialed back his business involvement, handing over much of the day-to-day management at Harrington Industries to a trusted CEO. He wanted to focus on Lily's recovery, to be present for every important checkup, every milestone as they prepared for the baby's arrival. Media attention remained relentless. Paparazzi swarmed whenever Lily left for her doctor's appointments, hungry for photos of the recovering heiress. The tabloids speculated about the baby's health and whether Lily would leave Marcus once she recovered. Yet Lily and Marcus chose not to release any official statements. They wanted to heal in private, free from the glare of headlines and social media chatter. Support arrived in unexpected forms. David Maxwell, once complicit in introducing Marcus to Cassandra, reached out to Lily. He apologized profusely, stating he never imagined Cassandra would turn violent. Lily accepted his apology, though she remained guarded. She didn't want to dwell on the past any more than necessary. Life had become too precious to squander on lingering resentment. Harriet Willis tendered her resignation, believing her negligence had contributed to Lily's suffering. Lily and Marcus, however, refused to accept it. They recognized Harriet's remorse and knew she was not malicious. Instead, they offered her a more structured role with clearer boundaries and insisted she undergo counseling if needed. Harriet, overwhelmed by their compassion, chose to stay. A small circle of close friends organized a private baby shower in the mansion's sunroom. It was a subdued affair, with soft music and minimal decorations, a far cry from the opulent celebrations once commonplace at the Harrington estate. Lily's face lit up when she opened gifts of tiny clothes and baby books, her hand drifting protectively to her belly. In that moment, she felt a sense of hope and possibility. Yes, her world had been turned upside down by poison and betrayal, but new life beckoned her forward. When Cassandra Morgan's sentencing hearing concluded, the media covered the story extensively. She was given 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10, depending on her behavior. There were rumors she planned to write a tell-all book, though her lawyer denied it. For Lily and Marcus, the finality of Cassandra's fate was both a relief and a somber reminder of how quickly a life can veer off course. On some nights, Marcus woke in cold sweats, haunted by nightmares of Cassandra pouring poison into Lily's tea, or Lily lying lifeless on the floor during that birthday celebration. Therapy helped, but the scars remained. As Lily's due date approached, Dr. Caldwell recommended induced labor to ensure medical supervision, given the high-risk nature of her pregnancy. One early morning, Lily's contractions began in earnest, and she was whisked to the hospital. Marcus accompanied her in the ambulance, holding her hand and whispering words of encouragement. This time, the hospital staff were prepared, aware of Lily's ordeal. Security was tight, keeping reporters at bay. The labor was long and arduous, but at the end of it, Lily gave birth to a baby girl they named Amelia Harrington. The moment Amelia let out her first cry, Lily and Marcus broke down in tears, overcome with gratitude. The child represented a second chance, a fresh start, despite the poison and betrayal that had threatened to extinguish her life before it even began. In the days after Amelia's birth, Lily recuperated in a secluded hospital suite. Marcus doted on both his wife and newborn, stunned by the love that swelled in his chest every time he held his daughter. The dark shadow of Cassandra felt distant, though not entirely gone. It lingered at the edges, a cautionary tale of what might happen when desire and ambition run unchecked. By the time Lily and Amelia returned home, the Harrington mansion felt transformed. The nursery, painted in soft yellows and adorned with plush animals, became the new heart of the estate. Laughter returned to its halls, not the boisterous laughter of lavish parties, but the gentle, nurturing kind that emanates from new parents learning to hold, feed, and comfort their child. One afternoon, as Marcus cradled Amelia in his arms, Lily watched from the doorway. She saw the tenderness in Marcus's eyes, the awe with which he gazed at their daughter. The man who had once hidden behind extravagance and fleeting affairs now seemed humbled, grounded by the miracle of fatherhood. In that quiet moment, Lily took a tentative step toward forgiveness. Though she would never forget what happened, she could sense that some measure of reconciliation was possible. They still faced the future with caution. Therapy sessions continued. Lily, in time, reopened discussions about the state of their marriage. She didn't know if their love would fully recover, but she was willing to try. Over whispered conversations in the early morning light, they decided they would not let Cassandra's actions define the course of their lives. Instead, they would use the memory of that near tragedy as a reminder to never again take their bond for granted. The Harrington name gradually distanced itself from scandal. Marcus worked quietly with philanthropic organizations, donating to causes that supported women and children in crisis. Lily found new purpose in speaking, albeit discreetly, about overcoming betrayal and adversity, especially during pregnancy. She wanted to help other women who felt powerless when faced with life-threatening challenges. And so life continued, day by day. The mansion's gates remained as grand as ever, but beyond them lay a family that had weathered a most horrific storm. The memory of that fateful cup of poisoned tea became a symbol of caution and redemption, a testament to the fragility of trust and the resilience of the human spirit. While Cassandra Morgan spent her days in a gray jumpsuit, haunted by the echo of her own destructive desires, Lily, Marcus, and little Amelia lived in a world far from perfect but illuminated by the hope of renewal. No longer blinded by illusions of opulence or shallow ambition, they found a more authentic kind of wealth. The love that had almost been lost, now rediscovered in the gentle coos of a newborn, and the shared determination never to repeat the mistakes of the past. Thank you for joining us on this gripping journey where envy met innocence and a single cup of tea altered lives forever. Mistress poisoned pregnant wife's tea, Millionaire's reaction in court shocked everyone, is a stark reminder that sometimes the most glamorous lives hide the darkest secrets. Lily's resilience teaches us the power of determination and hope, even when betrayal threatens to shatter everything. Marcus's regrets underscore how a moment's weakness can bring devastating consequences, yet also pave the way for redemption. And Cassandra's fate shows us the chilling result of letting jealousy dictate our every move. If you found this story compelling, please like this video, share it with friends who love real-life drama fiction, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. Your support helps us continue to explore the hidden recesses of human emotion, one dramatic story at a time. Thank you for watching,